Hey friends, welcome back to Finding Jesus. We are back with our Friday favorites. Each week we're just doing a short Bible study and talking about different women in the Bible and what we can learn from them, how we can apply these lessons to our everyday life. So we're in the book of Exodus, and we just started, when we did the Friday favorites the very first time, we started in Genesis with the very first woman, Eve. We're just working our way through the Old Testament right now, talking about different women in the Bible and what we can glean from them. So we've officially reached the second book of the Bible. We're in Exodus, and if you remember last week we talked about the midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, two women that otherwise we probably would not have remembered their names. In fact, I didn't even realize that they had names. I went back to the story and was like, okay, great, they did actually have names. So last week we talked about their obedience to God and how they feared God more than they feared Pharaoh. They wouldn't carry out Pharaoh's rule that they should go to these births, and if the Hebrew women were delivering boys, they should kill them. They should let the daughters live. So those were two women who were radically obedient and willing to do something that could have even really cost them something. So this week we're actually talking about another woman, same story, just the very next chapter in Exodus chapter 2, and her obedience. Now, I thought that this woman also didn't have a name because in the very first chapter, she's just mentioned as a mom. She married a Levite man, but this is Moses' mom. And even if she didn't have a name, I could totally empathize because so often I'm referred to as Mira's mom or Presley's mom. I hear that a lot, and no shame there. But she does actually have a name. So later in Exodus chapter 6, we find out that her name is Jochebed. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm probably doing a terrible job of it, but she does have a name. But for our purposes today, we're going to call her Moses' mom. So if you remember, Moses got frustrated with the midwives because they didn't carry out his law. They were not killing baby boys. And so he actually told all the people, okay, that's it. We'll just throw these babies into the Nile River. That was his solution, for this growing race of people that he didn't want to see come to power. So he has offered this solution of when baby boys are born, throw them into the river. And our story picks up in Exodus chapter 2. I'm just going to read the first section here. It says, "Now a man from the family of Levi married a Levite woman. The woman became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was beautiful, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could no longer hide him, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with asphalt and pitch. She placed the child in it and set it among the reeds by the bank of the Nile. And then his sister stood at a distance in order to see what would happen to him. Pharaoh's daughter went down to bathe at the Nile while her servant girls walked along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds, sent her slave girl, took it, opened it, and saw him, the child. And there he was, this little boy, crying. She felt sorry for him, and she said, 'This is one of the Hebrew boys.' Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, 'Should I go and call a Hebrew woman who is nursing to nurse the boy for you?' And she said, 'Go.' So the girl went and called the boy's mother, and then Pharaoh's daughter said to her, 'Take this child and nurse him for me, and I will pay you your wages.' So the woman took the boy and nursed him, and when the child grew older, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses because she said, 'I drew him out of the water.'" Now, we see this mom who was probably, desperate to protect her son, just like any of us would be, and she goes to pretty drastic measures. She hides him for the first 3 months of his life. I don't know how that's even possible. How do you hide a child? I know our most recent baby, Judah, there's no way I could have hidden him. He was colicky and crying, and I can imagine that baby Moses was not easy to hide anyway. Either way, she hides him for 3 months, and then she decides this isn't going to work. I guess I'm not technically, disobeying orders. She did throw her son into the Nile River, but she did so in a basket. We've heard this story from when we were in, Sunday schools or kids' church growing up. And so basically she tries to protect her son by putting him in this basket, floating him down the river. None other than Pharaoh's daughter finds Moses, takes him into her home, and then Moses' sister comes up with this great idea. She's like, "Hey, I know a Hebrew woman who can nurse him for you." So how cool that the mother actually got paid wages to nurse the baby Moses until he was old enough to go live with Pharaoh's daughter in the palace. I'm still nursing Judah right now. We're at 9 months strong. I wish somebody was paying me wages for that. It'd be fabulous. So it's a great end of the deal. But what can we learn from Moses' mom? Well, I think first and foremost is that God entrusts us with his children. Our children are his before they're even ours. So we have this divine authority and responsibility to take care of our children, to guard them, to protect them, to shield them as much as we possibly can, to fight for our kids, to stand up for them. But there's another really important lesson, and I think it's that we have to trust God with our kids. There came a point where Moses' mom had to entrust God and just send him down the river and know that God was in control and that he would take care of her son. And I think it's the exact same for us. We have to be willing to let our kids go, even when it gets hard, even when they're making decisions that we're like, God, that's not your best plan for them. We have to trust that we have a good father who will look out for our children. We have to hold on to his promises about our children, even when life is shaky and doesn't seem certain, even when we disagree with the lifestyle that our children have chosen. I think we just really have to get to this point where, yes, we've guarded and protected and done the best that we could for our kids, but at some point we just have to trust God and let him go. So the mom does let him go. She allows Pharaoh's daughter to raise him, and Moses ended up leading the entire nation of Israel to freedom. Now, it was a bumpy path. We'll talk about that more in future weeks. It wasn't always easy. That came with its own set of challenges, but ultimately, God used Moses to do incredible things, and Moses wouldn't have even been on the earth if he didn't have a mother who was really willing to take risks and guard her son and protect him and then entrust her son to God. So I think it's powerful for us as moms. We never know what type of contribution our kids may make to the kingdom, what they may do for the world. So it's really beautiful just to think that, we can entrust our kids to God and trust that he has better plans for them than we would even have for them. So drop that in the comments below. Has it been difficult for you to trust God with your children? Are you walking through a season where you're like, God, I just don't understand why you're letting my kid walk through these things? If so, drop that in the comments below. We would love to stand with you in agreement and pray over your kids and their future and their destiny and what God is doing in their lives. So I hope this encouraged you today. Thank you so much for taking time and spending it with me. We love you guys, and we'll see you next time on Finding Jesus and our Friday favorites.